Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today, here in Annex 1, the Riverdale Annex of the Planetary Gig Society, Studio 1 here, I'm delighted to be able to talk with a great guitar player and wonderful guy who I've known a long time, and he also happens to be currently the president of the Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Foundation, which is just a block away from where we are right now. Willie Leebel. Hi, Willie.
Hey, Jeff. I wanted to thank you for having me out to do this.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, it's great. You know, the Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Foundation, maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit about it, but it certainly has been a really important part of my life. Great community, and we call it the Barbershop. And maybe you could explain a little bit about why that is and what the Barbershop is.
Well, I guess to do that, the best thing to do would be to go back to Archie Edwards. Mm-hmm. And Archie was a country fella from South Central Virginia who moved to the Washington area in the 1950s, and he was a barber. He opened a barbershop in Northeast D.C. on Bunker Hill Road. And every Saturday afternoon around 1 p.m., he and whoever was at the barbershop, they would stop barbering, and Archie would play music, and some of his friends would come and play too. And this got to be well known around the city. People would come in and listen. Archie would invite other people to come and play. As time went on, Archie had a big following, and many people came to play. People came from the local area. People came from the East Coast. People came from the West Coast. People came from other countries to listen to this country blues. Archie also performed. He performed locally. He performed in Canada. He performed throughout Europe, and it became his place became legendary, and it still is. Happy to say.
Yeah, I think it is too, yeah.
Yeah, it still is legendary. And when Archie passed away in 1998, the people who were around the barbershop at the time wanted that legacy to continue, and they also wanted a place for all of Archie's old buddies to hang out. And as a result, a foundation was formed, and I know that you had a big part in doing that, and that's everybody appreciates what you did for that. But the foundation still is going today. In fact, this year is our 20-year anniversary. We're going to have some celebrations later on in the year. Nice. And the barbershop is just a piece of all of us. Anybody who's been there. Where are you going this Saturday? Oh, we're going to the barbershop, and that's all that you need to say. Everybody knows exactly what that means. Is there's going to be a lot of music, a lot of fun, a lot of community, and it's just a wonderful place, and the foundation is going very strong.
Yeah, well, that's great, and thanks for all you do to make that happen. So, if people don't know too much about Archie Edwards, he played guitar in the Piedmont style, or East Coast. Mm-hmm. Which is the alternating thumb bass line on the guitar. And he knew John Hurt and played, it was a little bit like John Hurt. He knew Skip James. And it's not a style of music that a lot of people really play that much anymore. But I guess one of your goals is to keep that going, isn't it?
Yeah, to keep generally Piedmont blues, but also just acoustic blues going. I've been saying this for about 6 years to everybody involved in blues, and I've said that we are the only acoustic blues foundation in the United States, and no one has ever said anything to the contrary to that.
Yeah.
There are some acoustic blues organizations in Europe, but none in the United States. So we have that bit of fame to live up to, but it's a wonderful organization, And I feel very fortunate, and I guess people are using the word blessed these days, fortunate and blessed, that I can be a part of the organization. I know you and I were talking earlier about the groups that have been made at the Barbershop. I know you did an interview with Nina Casey. Nina Casey started at the Barbershop about 5 years ago as a timid little singer, and now she's on stage.
She's fabulous.
Yes,
Nina is really fabulous. I enjoyed talking with her.
Yeah, she's a wonderful jazz singer. She's a wonderful blues singer. She has a great stage presence.
Yep.
And we look at Nina, and I take a little bit of satisfaction knowing that MSG, who were actually nominated for a Grammy last year. They're a result of the Barbershop. There's a group that's called DC Mud that got together at the Barbershop, and there are a number of duos and trios that are performing out that have actually gotten a start there. So it's just very rewarding to know that you help people along doing something that everybody truly loves. I mean, everybody loves music, so.
Yeah, one of the things I remember when I first went down there, Miles Spicer, who's with MSG, along with Risa Gibbs and Jackie Merritt, Miles said, I met him at a DC Blues Society event, and Miles said, you got to come to the Barbershop. So I went down there. I saw Archie in the old Barbershop a couple of times. Dave Harris was there. I played along a little bit. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, frankly, but it was quite a treat. But I, at the time, I was trying to learn harmonica. I hadn't had a musical background really. I just really wanted to. What are the right notes? How do you fit in? How do you know what you're doing? All that. I wanted to play. So that was kind of my focus in it. But what I learned over time, Archie had passed, but there was Mr. Bones, and Mike Baytop, and Joe. And Jay, and then the people who came around, and we spent a lot of time not playing. We spent a lot of time just hanging out, and nobody knew what somebody did during their work day, or much about their family background or anything. But it was always such a pleasure to see MJ, to see Mike, to just see the friends that came through this musical community. It really is magic, I think.
It really levels the playing field. You like you said, people can have any type, any profession, but when you talk music, you put all that aside, and you do what you play or you talk or you sing or you perform as best you can, and that's how people judge you in our community.
Right.
Not by how much you make, not by what kind of a car you drive, but by your music.
Yeah, or maybe if you play too loud or too long and that sort of thing too. But
you get that reputation too.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a little bit about your own upbringing in music, or when do you remember first wanting to play? You played guitar now for a long time. How old were you? What was kind of the first sort of memories you had of music in your life?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'd actually been thinking about that, and an old memory hit me, and I must have been 7 or 8 years old at the time, and my uncle, who took a lot of care for me. There was a rock and roll concert one night, and this was probably 1956, 57, and it was in the high school football stadium, and it was a summer day. And I forget who all was there. The only person I remember there was an old 50s singer and piano player named Johnny Tillison. And the music was just totally infectious. and I loved it. And there was an old stand-up piano in the center of the football field.
Wow!
And you could and the microphone was hanging directly into the piano, and he was just rocking away some old 50s rock and roll. And it was like I said, I can't remember all of the performers there, but it was a 2.5 hour show. And I can remember leaving there and walking home with my uncle, and I was so excited that with the music afterwards, that I had to run, I had to jump. I couldn't, as a little boy, I couldn't keep myself normal or still. Uh-huh. And so that's I think when music really kind of hit me in the head. There was always music in the house. My older sister won a piano. And so my family didn't have a lot of money.
How did she win? Did she win it from playing piano, or
no?
For bow and arrow shooting or something?
Well, not quite that. I don't know whether you're old enough to remember, but back in the day, you would go to the movies, and you would go to the movies for all day. There'd be a couple of cartoons, and then there'd be some short, like Three Stooges things, and then there'd be a movie or a second feature. And in between some of those features, the owners of the theater would get to, they'd come on stage and they would have drawings or contests. Well, one day they're raffling off a piano, and my sister won it at the movie theater. So that's how the piano got in the house. Otherwise, we'd have been able to afford it. And both of my sisters were both older than me, and they had piano lessons, and I used to love to listen to them play. The piano teacher would come to the house, and I would just sit very quietly and listen to the piano play. So I got to the age where I said, I'd like to take piano lessons. And my parents, I guess, were kind of skeptical how serious I was about them. Mm-hmm. And so what they did with me is I went to parochial school, and they arranged for me to have lessons with one of the nuns. And I wasn't crazy about nuns. That's a whole nother story. But I think that's my only prejudice in life is nuns. But
I had nuns too. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So my piano lessons took place twice a week during recess. Now, what 9-year-old boy
dagger
would want to give up recess for any kind of lesson, and so my piano lessons were cut short, but I still loved, I still had a love for music, and I with my older sisters always had popular music in the house, and I was always listening to their records, and I can remember the first record I bought was a Bo Diddley record. Ooh. And it must have been in 59 or 60, and I wore that thing out. I mean, I listened to it, I sang along with it, and I pretty much wore the record out. And I just loved it, and I think that's partially where my love of blues came from. I didn't know what he was playing was blues, but I loved what he did. So, and I guess it was about the age of 16 or 17. Myself and some of my peers at the time, we heard you could pick up girls if you could play guitar. So we got guitars.
There you go.
Yeah. I have to say that really doesn't work. You have to know how to play the thing. You just can't have it in your hands. But anyway, but we plunked around on guitars for a while, and I was a product of the 60s and played all the hippie songs and a lot of folk music. And then when I got married and had children, I kind of put the guitar away. And it was about 15, 16, 17 years ago when I bought another guitar, and that was all it took. I was really hooked, and I was serious about it this time. So I took some lessons. And that's where I got started with the Barbershop, through Phil Wiggins, mm-hmm. who I met at a guitar camp, and he suggested that I try going to Archie's Barbershop. So,
well, that's amazing. I know there's a lot of people who I didn't play music when I was younger, but a lot of people did have lessons. Mm-hmm. They played in the band or they had to take music lessons, but then they kind of gave it up for a while, and the guitar went in the closet. or whatever, and then you get through a lot of that heavy duty stuff in your life, and people tend to come back to it. So I think a lot of people may have been on that trajectory. Did you play a lot of different kinds of music? Did you start off with when you came back to the guitar? Were you started with blues, or were you just playing some of the old stuff you played? Did you get involved in groups, or what did you do?
When I started to play again, I had a long love for the blues, and I think it goes back to I was born and raised around the Pittsburgh area, and I moved to the Washington area, to start a career, and at the time in the late '60s, early '70s, there was a lot of great music going through D.C. And I can remember going to the old cellar door in Georgetown. And I like to say I spent my kids' college fund there because it seems like I was there every weekend. But I can remember seeing Muddy Waters there a couple of times, Paul Butterfield, Junior Wells, Buddy Guy. Just a lot of blues guys. And I just loved it. One of the most enjoyable groups I saw was Sonny, Terry, and Brownie McGee there, and it was just incredible to have that music at your fingertips. And after that, I was just hooked on blues. You listen to other kinds of music, but if I wanted to play guitar, I wanted to play blues.
I remember going down to the cellar door too. I think I saw Jonathan Edwards. I'm not sure I saw the blues players that you saw. But one thing I remember very, very distinctly was whoever I saw there, at intermission, they brought out a small black and white television and put it on a chair and on the stage, and we watched Richard Nixon resign. And then when he finished his speech, they took the chair and the TV off, and they continued the music.
How about that?
Yeah, that was a great place.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have to tell you this story. The reason that Sonny, Terry, and Brownie McGee left such an impression on me was that we went to see them on a bad snowy night, and you know what Washington is like when it snows.
Right.
Everything dies. And so they always had two shows, the early show and the late show. So we went to the early show, and we sit down, and we were kind of right in the aisle. And if the performers had to walk through the aisle to get to the stage. There was no back door or anything. I'm looking, and I see Brownie leading Sonny because, of course, he was blind. And he's leading him right into the direction of my wife, who was sitting beside me.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, let me also say that my wife was very well endowed in the chest area.
She put up a bold front, in other words?
Yeah, she certainly did.
Yeah.
And what happened was Sonny accidentally, on purpose, bumped into my wife and reached around and felt her up.
Oh my God!
And I saw the whole thing happening, and I just had to laugh. She was flabbergasted, and I kind of laughed over it. And so the concert went on. After the concert was over, they said we had a number of cancellations. Anybody that would like to stay for the second show, you're certainly welcome to stay. However, we'd like you to get up and leave your seat. And the people who had reservations for this show, we're going to let them sit down first, and then you can fill in. So we filled in. Again, we were on the aisle, but in a different place. And so here comes Sonny and Terry walking in, and don't you know that he led them right to my wife, and he felt my wife up for the second show.
Gee, well, that's a classic story.
Yeah, and Sonny says, "Don't worry, honey. He's blind. He can't rake you."
Oh my God!
But
wow. Well, Sonny Terry was a fabulous harmonica player, really a trendsetter. Mm-hmm. And in my podcast interview with Grant Dermody, he said that he was at a Sonny Terry concert, and Sonny let out this note, and it just hit Grant and basically changed his life forever. Mm-hmm. it's remarkable how music can do those kinds of things. And so let's talk a little bit about, that power of music and community with, in light of the barbershop and what's been going on. We did talk a little bit about it, how great friendships were built there, but something deeper and something that really grabs people. I mean, we were just over there and there's 15 people sitting around playing a song and just loving it.
It's kind of an enigma how it works, because you can't put a finger on it, but every time I listen to music, and especially every time I play music, there's always that one magic moment when something happens that you don't expect to happen, but it really sounds good, and it's kind of like a learning experience. And I think everybody has that. Everybody goes through that, and that's part of what the magic of music is. As far as the community, we welcome people into the barbershop, regardless of what instrument they play, and regardless of their playing ability. We like to infect people with acoustic blues. So we'll take anything that comes in. And when someone walks into the barbershop for the first time, we've all had that feeling. And it's kind of like you're standing naked in the town square. You know, it's like, what am I going to do now? What's going to happen? Everybody's going to judge me, and I can't play that well. And it's not that way where we are. And, we're happy to have new people come in, and we like to bring them along. We like to see beginners, because sooner or later they're going to get better, and they're going to go out and do their thing. And, I think that's part of the community. It's just we're all in this together, and we know exactly what beginners are feeling and what people are coming in for the first time. And the aspect of other people coming in the community, we have locals just drop in and listen to music, and they're happy to do that. There are locals that walk in and say, "Are you going to do this song tonight? Are you going to do Red Rooster today?" And I said, "Is that a request?" And I said, "Well, yes." Okay, so we have people that look forward to coming and just listening to the music, even if they don't play.
Yeah, that's the listening is one thing, but I remember, again, being a harmonica player trying to learn. It was such a welcoming environment. I mean, there's always a feeling that everybody started the same place. In my interview with Andrew Fay, she talked about going to Blues Week and wondering how the hell people knew what chords to play next, and she's an accomplished, fabulous player, and so there is that learning curve for everybody, and it's a little bit hard. You do feel like you're sort of naked when you're out there playing. I mean, I still feel like, oh my God, am I going to play a clam right now? Jesus. But I think that's really important. People can come to the barbershop and sit down and gradually move to maybe the front row and play a little bit more and learn a little bit more. It's a very important thing to recognize that. There's also something that I learned at the barbershop, which is jam etiquette. Not everybody, I play with different folks, and not everybody completely gets it, honestly. You sort of, maybe you can explain a little bit about it. I think there's a piece of paper at the barbershop that talks about it, but not everybody goes around the room and asks people what songs they want to do, and then people don't always say the key, and they, so I think that's one of the things about the barbershop that also makes it special. Every Saturday afternoon, you can come down and they'll be doing the same sort of a thing.
I think it's important when if you play with other people, and most musicians do play with other musicians. Not many of them play solo, but when you do play, you have to leave room for other musicians, and you have to respect their playing, and that's part of jam etiquette. It becomes particularly important with jams because you haven't practiced together. You're strangers coming together, trying to play a song that's supposed to sound good, and you have to work to that end, and showing etiquette. Letting someone else take a lead and backing off with your with the volume of what you're playing or the amount of what you're playing is important. And some of the other board members and I. And you just said talk about getting it. And it is, I think, is the whole mojo of the barbershop. When I started the barbershop, I was not a novice, but I still considered myself a blues beginner. And at first, I was a little timid and intimidated. And after I saw that everybody was welcoming, I just started to whack away on the guitar and just started to play the hell out of it, and not playing well, but just playing loud. And I did that for about a month, and the light bulb went off, and I'm really not contributing anything here. And that's when you start to listen to others rather than trying to play your ass off. And you start to see the subtleties that are going on, but you can't learn anything if you don't listen. You can't learn while you're talking, so you have to listen. You can't learn while you're playing, and so you have to listen. And I think that's that's getting it at the barbershop, is just learning to listen. And everybody I think everybody goes through that progression, and some people get it faster than others. And we talk about the people that get it, and some people don't get it, and we kind of take them aside and talk to them about it. So.
Yeah, no, that's important. One other thing that we've talked a little bit about in the past, I think that organizations like the Barbershop are so important, and there should be a barbershop where people can go jam everywhere, kind of around the world. And it's a model that I wish more people would try to emulate. There's a lot that they could learn from you, from the board, from the Archie Edwards Blues Heritage Foundation, and what you've done over the years. There are concerts there, not just the jams. You have an open mic night. I think it's something from my perspective, to aspire to, is to think, well, that's what Planetary Gig Society is about. More gigs around the planet, more music nights, more open mics, more whatever it is. And the barbershop, really walks the walk, in my view.
Yeah, we have talked about trying to kind of spread our wings into other areas. And I've actually spoken to other people about that. There's a gentleman in Florida. You might even know him. I call him Judge Pete. He's a harmonica player. He's been to Blues Week a few times. He's a big guy.
I'm not sure I do.
But I talked to him, and he has the knowledge and the ability to start something like that. And he's around the Palm Beach area in Florida. And I was down there a couple of weeks ago, and we were actually jamming together at a tavern down there. And I could see that happening anywhere in the United States, because there are people that are just dying to get out and play in a very informal setting. And with some folks, playing at an open mic, I think, is a little too intimidating for them. Mm-hmm. And the barbershop is a place where you can sit in the back and learn your chops, or you can sit up front and play, run with the big dogs, so to speak. But yeah, I would like to see that happen. Like you and I know the magic that happens in the barbershop, and that could happen anywhere. If you present that in the correct environment. Yeah,
the barbershop is about acoustic blues, but there's so many other, jazz, and there's so many different kinds of music where people could, if they knew there were places they could go to, like a town center. And probably in, cultures before ours, there was a lot of that. Towns getting together, people getting together and playing music, and it's something I wish we could bring back more. Yeah, once you start playing, if other people play, it's almost like they want to join you. Especially if they like the music that you're playing. It's hard to not pitch in.
You hear a song that you like on the radio, and next thing you know, you're humming along with it, you're singing it, you're doing the voiceovers yourself. So when you hear music you like, it's hard to not recognize it.
Yeah, well, it really is a commonality and binds us all together. And you're doing a great job with the Barbershop. I'm glad we got to talk about that. I hope people will check it out, acousticblues.com, right?
That's acousticblues.com. We also have once a month guitar lessons on Saturday morning. We have once a month harmonica lessons on Saturday morning. We hope to be soon starting vocal lessons once a month, and we have our concert schedule where we have to turn away people because we have so many concerts and so many folks that want to come to the Barbershop and perform.
Yeah, well, it's a great thing. So Willie, thanks very much for taking the time to come by and talk about this. Really appreciate it, and we'll be jamming soon, I hope.
We will be, and I want to thank you for all your efforts and what you're doing, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Well, thanks. I think we can all make a difference together, so that's awesome. Thanks very much, Willie Leebel. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.